Welcome back to our podcast here on our YouTube channel. And this week, last minute addition to our podcast guests, and I'm so thankful. And most of you will maybe understand why as I share why or as Carmen shares her story. But for those of you that don't know, my longtime companion, Chance, my little Shih Tzu, who was given to me for my 40th birthday, passed away during COVID, and I still miss him dearly after almost 3 years. So welcome, Carmen, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me at this 11th hour. That was so serendipitous how it came about, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh, I am grateful. And I really can't wait I know a little bit about your story, which is why you're here, but I can't wait to hear it all. And I don't want to give anything away. But first, could you please tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
I will, and I'm going to do it in the form, I don't know if you've had this done before, of reading a little snippet from my last book, because it so encapsulates me, and I think your audience will resonate with this, even though my story isn't their story, but they're going to figure it out. So this is an introduction to I Chose You, which is about dogs. My life is full of never statements. I will never kiss a boy. I will never get married. I will never forgive him for what he did. I will never get married again or again. I will never live in the Midwest again. I will never own a dog. I will never, ever write another book. When a person says he or she will never do something again, someone typically chimes in with the idiom, never say never. Maybe people are prone to changing their minds. I think more often than not, in the course of living, things happen. It could be the choices we make or the actions of others that put us on a radically different path than we planned. And those never statements come back to laugh in our faces. This is a book about never saying never, life happening, and dogs. It's mostly about dogs, but it's also a book of stories rooted in my life and my journey to this weird place of being married, living in the Midwest, having a dog, writing about thousands more dogs, and somehow being mostly okay with never somehow becoming forever. There we go.
What a fantastic introduction. We get to learn so much about you in that. And I think more people need to have their bios, their introductions be something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's not dry.
No, and it grabs your attention.
No,
So,
thank you.
but I don't want to like delay your story. So why don't you share your story and then we'll talk after that.
So I'm going to be 70 in May, and this is your audience to go, no way, yes way. So I have a lot of stories. We're going to get a little slice of life story. So almost 8 years ago, I was finally, after all of these stories, living my best story. I had remarried. This one is sticking. No, it's sticking. And I had moved back home to Hawaii. Hawaii is my heart home. It was the one place when I got off the plane, people looked like me. And it shouldn't matter, but it does. There's a sense of home, a sense of self when you see people looking like you. And so it just did my heart good. And I love the pacing of Hawaii. I love the food. I love the beauty, the people. It was great. I was a concierge for Expedia. So I was that person at a hotel wearing a really ugly uniform saying, Aloha, do you ever go to Pearl Harbor? Let's go to helicopter tour. I made their dreams come true. Tailor-made job for me. And I was really good at what I did. And as long as I didn't have a headache, I could put up with people because I love customer service. And most people don't love it. And I love marketing and I love sales. So it was great. One day on a day off, my husband and I went to the beach. And on the way back, he was going to drop me at book club because I love to read. And we were on a busy highway, 5 o'clock, at a stoplight in our little Subaru, and out of nowhere came a giant SUV. Bam! Slammed into us. We hit another giant SUV, two other cars, news at 10, 5 car pileup. Life, life. We knew the car was total. I called my son who was serving in the military there. He was so funny because he was raised in Hawaii, joined the military, became a Korean linguist, so that meant he got stationed back home in Hawaii. Join the Navy, see the world. Nope, join the Navy, get stuck back home. Mom was happy. So I called, he came and got us. Tow truck came. Got up the next day and I had a headache. And I've had a headache. It'll be 8 years since June 15th, 2015. I've had a headache every single day. I don't remember ever having a headache. They were level 10 headaches, had a very bad concussion. The filter of my brain was gone. And I had to go to work every day and actually put up with people. And that was really hard. And I had 6 doctor's appointments a week. I had lots of different medications, lots of different trying to make life work. I saw 3 outcomes to that, but I never told anybody the outcomes I saw. Outcome number 1 was I would go to jail for assault because some people, when you go to Hawaii, it's a planned destination, right? And it's usually around, it's my wedding, it's my anniversary, I got a promotion. And so when something goes wrong, like it rains, or your bus doesn't show up, or the federal government shuts down Pearl Harbor because we can't, everything's stopped, I'm the problem. I'm the problem. And I understand I'm not the problem, but when you're coming at a very ill person, then stuff happens. Option number 2 was I would get fired because of my mouth, because of people. And option number 3 was I would die. And that was my very real option. And I've been through a lot in life, but I've never had anything so deeply personal as a never-ending migraine and a concussion that could not be fixed. My doctor kept saying, get a dog, it's going to help. I don't do dogs. I don't hate dogs. I'm not a dog person. I can barely keep myself alive in my brain. I can't be responsible for anything else that lives and breathes. Not a plant, not a dog. For 2 years, he kept saying, get a dog, and I kept resisting. And things got worse. I would sit at my computer Googling which medications am I on right now that I should take and which combinations and how many, so I die. That was my life, working, plotting to die. That was it, and surviving. It got to the point where there was no way life was sustainable. I earned more than my husband. I didn't want to live in that little grass shack. I didn't want to go on welfare. I just didn't. And so my son had married a girl from Wisconsin. Boys tend to go where girls want to go. They want to be with their family. And so I'm in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. That's where he was. And so we made this dramatic shift in March. Now, if any of your listeners are from the Midwest of Canada or the US, you know that was a stupid time to move from Sun to the Midwest in March. And things got worse and worse and worse. Until finally I said, I will go and I'll see about getting a dog. I will name this dog Xanax because it won't work. I will throw it away like all my drugs that didn't work. But I at least had the foresight not to name him Xanax. But my plan was, it's not going to work. When I will die, I will kill myself. But at least my husband, who is a dog lover, will have a dog. And that is how I got my dog. That is where my story begins. That dog obviously saved my life. He is the love of my life. He was the right dog at the right time from the right shelter, little rescue shelter. They did, in the 10 years they were open before COVID happened, they rescued over 12,000 dogs from Kentucky, and they brought them up. And everybody in life needs a purpose. You can't exist only for yourself. And as sick as I was, I knew I had to have a purpose. And I wasn't ready for prime time to get a job. I didn't know if I would ever be, but I knew I had things I could do. My background's in sales and marketing. Animal wellness people are great at animals, and they kind of are not great at people, and they're really not great at marketing and getting money, but I am. So I began volunteering. I wrote bios, I did events, I did grant writing. I became the face of this little shelter, ironic because I wasn't a dog, but I was very transparent in the fact that I wasn't a dog and what the dog did for me and what that dog could do for you and why this dog, this shelter, what they did. And in the 4 years I helped them, I rescued over 6,500 dogs through my words, through this broken person who didn't want to live, who didn't want a dog, who saw no hope. That dog gave me hope. And turn, I'm able to help people understand how that dog could possibly give them hope in their life too. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I love that story because I didn't know if I wanted a dog when I got a dog. I was on my own. I was running an event management business. And if you've been at an event or done events or anything, it's
Yes,
all encompassing. It gets busier and busier. And I was like, how can I, as a single person, take care of a dog when I need to be gone for a week at a time for some events or whatever? But my dog, which was a gift for my 40th birthday, like I think I said in the intro, uh, became my savior in so many ways. They connect us to our feelings. They feel our feelings. He was all of 12 pounds, but he was also my protector in a lot of situations.
got that big dog syndrome.
Totally. But definitely I miss him, and I am constantly thinking when's the right time to get another dog. So
Yeah.
they can be our saviors. They are often and the best companions ever. And nobody is ever as excited to see you when you walk in the door as a dog is.
Exactly. And nobody made more mistakes than I did. Honestly, I made so many mistakes. I had not a clue. We'd had dogs growing up, but they were those neighborhood dogs that my brothers would bring home, and they weren't my dog. And then my kids, when I was getting remarried the second time, Mommy, Sean's dog had puppies. Can we have one? Zero thought process went into that. My new husband wanted a dog. It appeared, oh, they'll bond. Never get a golden doodle if you don't have a fence. Never get a golden doodle if you don't understand this breed. And it was a nightmare. And that was a dog that I said, I will never have another dog. Now I know he was a great dog for someone else. Wrong dog, wrong family, wrong timing. And so many of the rescues that came in were like that. They were not, I always tell people there aren't bad dogs in shelters. There are good dogs in bad situations.
Yeah.
And we need to help them, just like in a divorce, most people aren't bad people. They're in a bad situation. And if we can get them out of that situation and they can maybe counsel or, get through that, they become like, I'm really good friends with my ex now. Really good friends. And I never would have thought that. But now looking backwards, I could see why things happened. And we were two good people in bad situations. And that's what we have with dogs for the most part.
Yeah. Obviously you are masterful at storytelling because you are a multi-time author, and all of your work with the shelter to write the bios and help people know about these dogs and get them adopted and everything, all of the thousands of dogs. But why is it important for you to share your story in particular?
I get that, I was on a podcast once, um, a young guy, he was just starting out and he wasn't a dog person. And when I finished this podcast, he said, I never tell this to my guests, but I'm on the spectrum. I think a dog would really help me. And it clicked at that moment of that podcast, it clicked why I do what I do. Because I could make a lot of money not doing what I do. I do what I do not for the dogs. I'm still not a dog person. I'm my dog's person. I'm that person who, as I walk down the street with a friend, laughing and talking, all of a sudden I'm like, where is she? I look back and there was a dog. I go, oh, what? There was a dog? I didn't see the dog. I am not a dog person. I am my dog's person. I do what I do because if we keep murdering dogs because they are an inconvenience, because they're too expensive, because I'm too busy, because I'm a really crappy person who in a bad situation, or a good person, bad situation, whatever the reason, if we keep killing these dogs, then when the suicidal woman, the autistic kid, the PTSD vet, all those myriads of people who need a dog. They don't need a fancy dog, they need a dog. If we keep killing them, we're going to be resorting to buying them.
Mm.
I don't have $3,000, $5,000 to spend on a dog. These people are not going to have it. So I do what I do for people like me, for people who desperately, even if they don't know it, need a dog. And as a result, the dogs live and they benefit, and we get to pair them with the right people. That is why I do what I do, which makes me real different because most animal wellness people, they're all about the dogs. But when you're all about the dogs and not about the people, you don't always make the best match. So it needs to be both because we don't want dogs coming back the second, third, fourth time because it wasn't a good match. And I saw too much of that.
Yeah.
So
We,
that's my
I think
like,
we've all seen it for sure.
I mean, I will say we were an independent shelter, and the average return to shelter pre-COVID numbers were about 25%.
Mhm.
Ours were under 10%.
Because
And
you took
so
time.
they took time. But I will also say one thing, and I'm not slamming the way anybody else does business, but there are a lot of shelters who reject people because they're in a wheelchair or because they're on the spectrum or because they're old or fill in the blank. And so we didn't reject those people. We just took the time to find the right dog. We had one woman who I recognized the dog when I went to a dog park. It was a beautiful husky. And I recognized the dog, but not the person. And I said, "Oh, I know that dog." And she said, "Oh, you're from there." And we talked and whatever. And she said, "Yeah, we've always had huskies growing up, and I always wondered when my dog died. And I went over to XYZ place, and they said, oh, the huskies need lots of exercise." She goes, "Oh, I know, we've always had huskies." And they kept saying, "Well, but maybe it's not the right home." And she goes, "No, I know a lot about huskies, and I want this husky." They flat out told her, "Well, you don't look like a person who would exercise a dog." She was very overweight. So they basically refused to let her have a dog because she was fat.
Wow.
And when she came to us, when she saw a dog online, and we said yes, she stood in the lobby and cried. She could not believe that we had said yes. And that dog, she goes to the dog park, she takes them on walks, she does trails. The dog was really good for her health. She was good for the dog. So I think, understanding people and their needs makes for a better match
Mm.
with the dog. And we do want those under 10%. Yes, things will happen. Things happen. You get a dog and the owner dies and nobody will take the dog. I mean, things happen, but to have a 25% return rate is just outrageous.
Right.
That's not fair to the dog.
Yeah. So when you were sharing your story and in some of our conversation already, you've talked about or touched on some of the benefits of being a dog owner, having the right dog, your dog, so that you are your dog's person, what that does for people. Could you expand a little bit on that
Well,
or
I'll
share?
expand on my story. When you're depressed, when you're suicidal, when you're all inside yourself, the last thing you want to do is get up and move. You just don't want to do that. And exercise is something we need to have. It really is a use it or lose it type of thing. If you have a dog, unless you just truly love cleaning up poop or having the dog tear up your house because they have too much energy they can't get out, you will get up and you will walk outside and you will find sun. And we know the benefits of vitamin D. And you will move, you will walk. Um, you will see your neighborhood, and for me, it was a new neighborhood, through the eyes of your dog. But you're going to take what I call a sniff centric walk because dogs have to stop and smell and learn, and you're looking at the eyes of the dog. You're looking at your neighborhood. Dogs are people magnets. When
Mhm.
you're suicidal and depressed, you've just moved, you didn't know a soul, and you're too much into yourself, the last thing you want to do is, "Oh, I guess I'll go to a party, or I guess I'll go to this someplace." You don't know people, but the dog will force you because, oh my gosh, what a cute dog. What's his name? Where'd you get it? And you start these conversations and you're going on those same routes and you're seeing those same people. So you gradually begin to come to life again. You're like a plant that looks dead, but with the water, maybe with some fertilizer, with some sun, that plant begins to bloom. And that dog is all of that for you. And you begin to bloom and you begin to realize maybe my life is not over. Maybe it's not as awful as I thought it was. And life goes on. And we just see that with individuals who are retired or got divorced or they got fired, COVID. People thought dogs were the magic bullet. And for many people, they were. But then you have to go back to a routine. And that was a problem. I am really proud to say that our shelter didn't have that problem at all. There was, there was, you know, puppy pandemic, and we were and everybody's lining up and they're trying to get the dog, and they're fighting over it. It was like real estate. Okay, you want 300 adoption fee? How about if I give you 6? How could this? No, we don't bargain. That's what it is. But we didn't have massive returns because we took that care. So understanding people's stories, and you and I are a lot alike. We love look at your book all about story and strength, and um, knowing the people's stories and knowing why they think they need a dog helps to get a better match. And if you know their story, if you're a long distance runner and you want a running partner, well, I'm not going to give you a dachshund. I mean, just those little small things. And that's why I always say right dog, right time, right family, right person. Everything
Yeah.
has to be in alignment. And I am, when we went in there to look at this dog, and my husband's a dog person, and we looked on the computer before we left, and he chose his dogs. The dogs came in, and they're all over him. And I'm like chopped liver. They just didn't even come to me at all. And I said to the owner, I said, don't you think that if it's my support dog, it should come to me? And he goes, well, what do you want in a dog? I said, well, I want a dog that, oh, I don't know, it doesn't jump, it doesn't lick, it doesn't get on furniture, it doesn't shed, it doesn't bark, it's not annoying. That's what I want. And he said, so you don't really want a dog? I said, no. He goes, I have the perfect dog. And he brought in this little nothing of a dog. I mean, he was like 12 pounds underweight, we now know, had kennel cough, which was something else to deal with. And the dog just came, ignored my husband, ignored Jim, and sat right in front of me and looked at me with those I dare you eyes. I dare you not to fall in love. And just sat there and waited. And I didn't have a choice but to bring him home. And it was because Jim knew me, my story, a little bit, and he knew this dog. This dog had been there for 3 weeks and nobody had ever asked about him. And he just wasn't ready to go anywhere. He was my dog.
He was waiting for you.
Yeah, and I, in my last book, at the end of it, and I share and I say, I wish I knew his family. Because I know he was owned. He wasn't abused. He could eat from my hand nicely. He had some training. He could sit. I know probably he's here because he was a runner. Because he certainly was a runner for me. Oh, so many stories, so many stories. And he didn't have a microchip. He wasn't spayed or neutered. He just was one of these dogs in Appalachia that just you run, you get not even a mile away, and they can't reunite. And so he came here. And I say, I wish I could find his people and I could help them to understand your dog wasn't running away from you. Your dog was running to me. He knew this broken woman in Wisconsin who was not happy with where she was, who needed this dog, ran to me. And I hope they have another dog. And I hope he's got the microchip and they have a fence or he's not a runner. But that's how I know. I mean, I know he's a runner. And so he was 14 months old and he just ran right to me. And he wasn't supposed to be anybody else's dog. And
Yeah.
that's right dog, right place, right time.
Yeah. And that's just perfect. Now, often I like to wrap up an interview asking people, if a book was written about their life, what would it be called? But you have, I think, a dozen or so books, and you have another one coming out. Why don't you just tell us a bit about that?
So the new one coming out is super fun. It's called When Love Wags a Tail. And I always tell my books are like if a mini memoir met Chicken Soup for the Soul, but with a lot more depth. So the new book has 40 authors. I think the last one had 44. And the format's the same. The new one's really fun because I hate gardening. If you go to my website at carmenleal.com, you'll see that my tagline is storyteller, coconut's mom, reluctant gardener. And I share about how I came to be a dog person, but this gardening nightmare, because we bought a house long distance. We'd seen it for a nanosecond and went back. And we did not know the house had severe flooding in the yard and was like 95% weeds. And so I share about this journey into gardening and how it parallels with my dog. And the two of them sort of work. And this book, everybody is over 55, although I don't card, but they are definitely not 20. And gardeners who are true gardeners tend to be that demographic because you need time and you need money to be a gardener, I have learned. So it's just a compilation of stories from all the different stages of having a dog and the reasons they do it. And there's just some really, really wonderful stories. I'm so grateful for my readers. All the books I've written on marketing and on Huntington's disease and on grief and death and dying, I take all the horrible things that happen in my life and I monetize them. So, but in the process, I'm hoping that my story will resonate with my readers and they'll glean something that helps them get through what they're going through. But it's really fun just writing about the purity of dogs and writing the funny stories. People will say, I love your stories and I would love to buy your book, but it'll make me cry. And I said, yeah, it will, because dogs die. But it'll make you laugh. It'll make you think. It'll make you be grateful. And when you close that book, because they're really small, they're just stories are 1,200 words, not a lot of words. So you can read it, go back and forth, and pick up a place. But I guarantee you, you'll go back and you'll have your favorites and you'll read them again and again. So that's that book. But if I did write a book, a pure book, I came up with this long time ago. The title of my book is Tears in the Toilet, a compilation of stuff that just happens. That would be my. I came up with that in college. I wore glasses forever, and the temple of the glass broke when I was first week in college. And when you're in a bathroom and it's a new place, you don't know where the handle is to flush. So I turned around to find the handle, and the glasses flew off, and they got flushed down the toilet. And I didn't have a spare, and I literally stood there crying in the toilet because I didn't have any money to buy new glasses. And so that has stuck with me. And yeah, my life from Topeka to Oshkosh with a stop in Timbuktu. I grew up in Topeka, Kansas. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Timbuktu, and now I live in Oshkosh. And they're kind of these mythical places that people use to make fun of in novels that aren't really real. And I've lived in all three of them. So
Oh, I love that. So you've mentioned your website and we've talked about your books. So how can people find your books? When does the new book come out? And how can people find you?
yes, well, carmenleal.com, and you're going to have that information on a slide, I would imagine. But I
Yes.
also have another website. I started a little publishing website. It's called wagawaypublishing.com because love is just a wag away. That was the tagline I wrote for the shelter. And when they closed because of COVID, I got that back. And I love that line because love is just a wag away. And so wagawaypublishing.com. And I have a Facebook that I'm growing. I've not given as much attention for growing it as I should, but it's really fun. It's facebook.com/rescue more dogs. And I am the only person who posts. I post stories and tips and recipes and jokes and memes. And I do maybe 6 or 8 of those a day. And followers make comments. on those things. And it's just a way to celebrate rescue dogs and understand. And I always tell people, I don't care if your dog came from a breeder, a responsible breeder. I don't care. There are reasons to get a dog not from a shelter, and I honor that. So you're welcome to read the book. You'll love the book, and you will find purebred dogs in shelters.
Mhm.
Exactly, but you will. So that's the best way to find me. My books are on Amazon.com or any online bookseller. As an indie author, you're not going to walk in to Barnes and Nobles and see our books sitting on a shelf, face out in the window. You're not going to find that. But you can always ask. And we love when you ask. Because if enough people go to Barnes and Nobles or whoever the big stores are and small stores in your town, then once it gets into their computer as an order and enough people ask, it becomes routine. So
Mhm.
I am with a distributor that goes to any bookstore there is.
Yeah.
But the easiest way is through Amazon.com. Um, yeah, so that's how you find me.
Well, we will be sure to share all those links on our socials and in the show notes so people can make it really easy for them to find you. And I am so thankful that you were able to record with me
Oh,
today.
I
And
am too. What fun. And thank you for letting me share my stories. I know sometimes I get long-winded with my passion and excitement, and hopefully through all these people are seeing themselves or seeing the selves they want to be through their story. Uh, your listeners have their own stories of bad things that happened to them, but they get strength in what happened, like your book says. And dogs, hobbies, passions, music, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a dog, but those things will get you to be the person you're supposed to be right now in this time of your life because we evolve. And if I could say anything to the 20-year-old me 50 years later, it would be that's just making you a better person.
yeah,
We
so
are made of layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And if you live this faultless life, this easy life, and you're not layered and textured,
oh, so true. And what a
kind of boring.
great way to end this. We
Thank
don't want to be
you.
boring, and there's so much out there for every one of us. And we all do have a story that matters.
We do. Thank you. Oh, what a great afternoon. Thank you for making my day.
Thank you.